Hello friends, here I am outside my home here in India. Probably some of you didn't know that I lived in India. You can see it's incredibly hot here today, so dry. We've been suffering from a drought here for some time, but pray to God it'll rain, right? We're hoping for a good monsoon season here, but the way things are looking, I don't know. Could be another year of drought. But let's carry on with what we were previously talking about. As we've spoken about, I've done several parts of this. The first part, we saw the sons of God, and I tried to prove to you, convince you through other scriptures that they are indeed sons of God, and they are God. And then part two, I went in depth. I tried to show you who they were and what they do in heaven. And then in the third part, and I said something a little bit more controversial, that they actually had sex with human women and procreated, which is a very unique concept, okay? Very unique. Probably no pastor's ever said that. I may have made some jokes and did some laughter about it. If you watched that part, I noticed my views were shit. I mean, nobody watched it really. But that's okay, I'm not complaining. God's good. I'm just doing this for Him, not for the views, alright? So, I want to carry on. Now, this is the final part, because now we're getting into their sons, who are the Nephilim. And they're their offspring. Okay, so I'm going to read a passage for you regarding the Nephilim, so you get an understanding of where we're at in Genesis after we've explained everything. So I'm going to read from my Bible here. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children by them. They were heroes of old, men of renown. Now, what they mean is when the sons of God went to the daughters of men, they had sex and they procreated. They laid with each other. Another Bible euphemism. And they gave birth to men. Now, what I want you to see is that throughout human history, especially India, there's the legend of demigods everywhere. And demigods were men that their father was God and their mother was human. And they were a special breed of person. And you go through every mythology, Greek mythology, they have Achilles, they have Hercules. In India especially, I don't know of it. I read very lightly, because I'm not a big fan of Hinduism, that they have men who became gods, so to speak. They were not gods and they became gods, and they were part human, part God. It's everywhere in human folklore and mythology and human history. In Greek mythology and Roman mythology, Julius Caesar declared himself a demigod. So it's out there. And and I think there's a reason it's out there. These Nephilim, their fathers were God, and their mothers were human. So you have this dichotomy in the same human flesh, and you have this dichotomy in the same human flesh. The name Nephilim, its Hebrew base means fallen. Now, does that mean that the Nephilim are fallen humans? Well, aren't all humans fallen? Now, if the Nephilim are part God, that dichotomy we're talking about, it means that there also should be something great about them, right? Even if they are fallen, then they also should be giants as well. There's that dichotomy. Giants is something great, something big, something powerful. And I think the text collaborates with that. It calls them heroes It calls them men of renown. It calls them many, many great things. So if I'm a man of renown, my name goes far before me. Like even today, people talk of Hercules, right? They're like, oh, he was a great man. He's a myth, but oh, he was a great man. He was a man of renown. Jesus was a man of renown. He's a very famous man. And a hero is somebody who does great things. So if they were in any sense evil, they had the human side in them. But if they were giants, then it was the God side in them that made them giants. And now it also said that Nephilim was there, and they were there afterwards. Now, if you don't know anything about the history in the Torah, there was a flood, right? Noah. And then all of humanity was wiped out except Noah and his family. And afterwards, Noah again and his family bred. Their family populated the earth. And again, the Nephilim were there on the earth afterwards. So were those descendants still living from the original Nephilim? No, I don't think so. I think they died in the flood. But as I said, back in the beginning, the gods were ascending. They were constantly on the earth. They were there when Abraham was there. They were visiting Abraham. They were speaking to Abraham. Melchizedek, he was there with Abraham. The gods were always coming to the earth, the sons of God. So I'm thinking that even after the flood, the sons of God came to the daughters of men and had children with them. If you don't know, there's Anak in the book of Numbers. He was known as a very giant man, and his descendants were giants, the descendants of Anak. You remember when the Israelites were going to invade the Promised Land? And they're like, we're like grasshoppers in front of these dudes, man. They're so big, so great. Goliath was an Anakite, a descendant of the Nephilim. The Nephilim, even though they were descendants of God, they were not descendants of the child of the promise. So the child of the promise destroyed them. The Israelites came and wiped them out. Goliath, stoned to the head. Even though they were children of the sons of God, they weren't children of the promise, which is a great thing to know that you're a child of the promise. If you're a child of Jesus Christ, if you're a child of faith, and you were born again by the seed of faith, and you're a descendant of Abraham, that you are greater than a Nephilim. You have inherited something that the Nephilim could never have, and that was the inner nature of God, not his flesh nature, not his strength nature. It was something that is regenerating you, reforming you, and making you something great, and that's something that the Nephilim have, and that's what we can learn from this passage. That they were there, and that it did happen, that sons of God are real, and they did have children, and it will happen again. And I'll show that soon, later on, as I already did in Psalms 45, and also in elsewhere. Also in the end of Ezekiel, we have the prince and the rebuilt temple and his household, and he has children. This man is also God, and he has children. But they're going to be redeemed children that are Nephilim. And I can even say that the 144,000 are also going to be Nephilim. It's an amazing thing. I won't say it's crazy anymore. It's amazing that God is willing to come down on earth and interact with you. Great thing that God is willing to come and interact with humanity in this way. It's not a thing of perversion. It's a thing of greatness. And it's going to shape human history like it has in the beginning. Again, history always repeats itself, and that's what we have to learn from this passage. And it's not an aberration that the sons of God had children with the daughter of the men. Okay, it's a beautiful thing. It's a sanctified thing. If children are born out of marriage, it is an act of righteousness. God said, "Be fruitful and multiply," and that applies to anybody entering the covenant of marriage. So remember, history repeats itself. So I'm going to pray at the end of the series. Out here in the middle of the freaking heat in India, it's so hot. So Lord, I just want to thank you for this teaching that we've had. I know it may have alienated some people because it's kind of different. I've spoke about God having sex with humans, about there being more than one son than Jesus, and this may be a little just too different for humans. But I pray that you give them the spirit of knowledge and wisdom and understanding, that they can see the truth and believe, because it's an incredible truth, and it's a Christ glorifying truth. It does not take away from his son's primacy and eminency in our lives. So we're going to bow down before his feet in our spirit and say, Lord, there are things about you we don't understand, but it's written there and it's true, and it's not metaphoric, and we're going to believe it, because I know that it's going to shape our history, it's going to shape us, and it's going to shape the end of the world. And we'll see that in Revelation. Amen.